My name is Snow White. I am so excited to be here with all of you today. Today, we are going to be reading together. Isn't that fun? I would love to tell you a story about a big surprise that I had for the 7 dwarfs. Snow White and her prince had recently been married, and they were living happily at the castle. The 7 dwarfs missed Snow White, but she made sure to visit them often. One spring day, Snow White went to the dwarfs' cottage. The dwarfs were not expecting her, but the princess had a very special surprise planned for them. What do we think this surprise might be? Maybe I make them a cake? Or I knit them some socks? Oh, I wonder what it's going to be. Snow White knew the dwarfs worked hard. That day, she wanted to make sure that when they got home, they didn't have any more work. No dusting, no sweeping, and no cooking. Snow White waited until the dwarfs had left. Then, she and her animal friends hurried into the cottage. The princess looked around. By the time the dwarfs get home tonight, our surprise will be ready. So they set to work. Snow White sang a cheerful song, and she swept the cottage floor. The birds chirped while they picked up crumbs. The squirrels used their fluffy tails to dust, and the chipmunks and deer washed and dried the breakfast dishes. With so many helpers, Snow White had the downstairs gleaming in no time. Next, they went upstairs, and the princess began making the beds. "Pull the covers up tight," she told the bunnies. "Then fold down the top. There, it's perfect." The bunnies hopped off to start on the other beds. Before long, every inch of the dwarf's cottage was neat and tidy. Snow White and the animals headed outside to gather fresh berries, nuts, and apples to use in the dwarf's supper. I wonder what she's going to make. "They'll be very hungry after their long day," said the princess. Luckily, the blueberry bushes had lots of ripe fruit, and the basket was quickly filled. "I know what we'll make for dessert," Snow White told the rabbits. "Blueberry pie!" "That's right, I did make them blueberry pie." Next, the princess and her friends strolled into a meadow to find some wildflowers. "Lovely," said Snow White as she sniffed a blossom. "These will be perfect for the table." "Look, there I am sniffing a blossom." Back inside the cottage, Snow White and her friends got to work fixing supper. There was soup to be simmered, bread to be made, and pie to be baked. Before she knew it, the late afternoon sun was casting long shadows across the window panes. Tweet, tweet, chirp, chirp. A bluebird was singing outside the window. That was the signal to tell Snow White that the dwarfs were almost home. Snow White and the animals hurried outside and hid. She couldn't wait to see what the dwarfs thought of their surprise. She peeked in through a window. When they got inside, the dwarfs stopped and stared. They couldn't believe their eyes. The floor was swept, the room was tidy, and there was even a freshly baked pie cooling on a windowsill. "What is that delicious smell?" Doc wondered. "Look!" cried Grumpy. He pointed to the table, which had been set. Then he went to the pot of soup. "Someone has been in our house." Silly dwarves. The dwarves were confused. They tried to guess which dwarf had done all of this. Doc noticed that Happy's smile was especially big. Was he keeping a secret? Dopey pointed out that Sneezy seemed super sneezy. Maybe because he had dusted and swept the cottage? Snow White giggled as she listened outside the window. "They'll never guess that we did it," she whispered to her animal friends. When the dwarfs started to eat their pie, Snow White quietly headed home. Inside the cottage, Bashful had one more guess. Whoever was behind the surprise would have to be one tired dwarf. And who seemed the sleepiest? Why, Sleepy, of course. The truth was, Sleepy wasn't the only one. After a long workday, their tummies pleasantly full, all 7 dwarves were ready for bed. Look at them all trying to guess who had done it. Silly dwarves. When they climbed the stairs, the dwarfs found one last treat. 7 neatly made beds and 7 perfectly fluffed pillows. As they drifted off to sleep, the dwarfs decided to tell their good friend Snow White about this wonderful surprise the very next time they saw her. Wasn't that a fun story? Well, thank you all for being here today. I would just like to remind you that in these times, it is hard and sometimes you can get very stressed out. So it's really important that we're all there for each other and that we help around the house, cooking or cleaning or whatever it may be. All right, thank you so much for being here today with me to read. I hope to see you all again soon. Bye-bye.